All right, so today we're going to be diving into something that might just, well, make you rethink that little sticker you get after you donate blood. You know, the one
Yeah.
we're talking about, the system behind blood donation,
Yeah, okay.
and whether it's as altruistic as we've always believed.
Right.
The source material for this deep dive is a podcast called Bloodlines, unveiling the truth behind blood donation camps.
Interesting.
And they raise a pretty unsettling question.
Huh?
Is the blood we donate for free actually being sold for profit?
Oh, wow. That is unsettling. It certainly is an intriguing question, and one that challenges our assumptions about this seemingly, selfless act. I mean, we often donate blood with this understanding that it's going directly to help those in need
Right.
without any expectation of financial gain. But what Bloodlines uncovers is a much more complex reality, one where the lines between altruism and profit can get blurry.
Yeah, I've donated blood a handful of times and never really thought about where it went after I left the donation center.
Yeah.
But this podcast got me thinking. Is there an entire blood economy we're not aware of?
That's a great way to put it. The truth is, there's a whole network of systems and players involved in getting donated blood to the people who need it.
Right.
And like any system, there are costs involved: collecting, testing, processing, storing.
Yeah.
And that's where the concept of blood economics comes in.
Okay, so break down blood economics for me.
Yeah.
What are the key factors at play here?
Well, you have the basic principles of supply and demand.
Okay.
There's a constant need for blood, and that creates a demand.
Right.
On the supply side, you have blood donation centers, hospitals, and even private companies all vying for a piece of this valuable resource.
And I'm guessing that's where the potential for exploitation comes in.
Exactly. The podcast highlights how this demand, coupled with the fact that donated blood can be separated into various components:
Okay.
plasma, platelets, red blood cells,
Right.
each with its own market value,
Mm-hmm.
creates an environment ripe for potential profiteering.
So it's not just about someone getting a unit of blood. It's about these different components being sold individually.
Right.
That's starting to sound a little more like a business than a purely humanitarian effort.
That's the unsettling truth the podcast brings to light. And it raises some tough questions about who ultimately benefits from our donations.
So we assume we're saving lives, but is there a chance we're actually fueling a system that commodifies something as essential as blood?
That's the core of the ethical dilemma we need to explore.
Right.
Is there a way to balance the need for a safe and efficient blood supply with the ethical considerations surrounding the commercialization of this life-saving resource?
And where do hospitals fit into all of this?
Yeah.
Aren't they the ones ultimately administering the blood to patients?
Hospitals are definitely key players in this system. And the podcast specifically points to a practice in some government hospitals in India that really highlights the potential for ethical conflicts. It's called replacement donation.
Replacement donation, what's that all
Yeah.
about?
Essentially, it means that if a family member needs a blood transfusion, you, as a relative, are expected to donate blood to replace what they're receiving.
Oh, wow.
It's a way for the hospital to ensure their blood supply remains stable.
So it's like you're being asked to pay for the blood your loved one needs, even though someone else donated it for free in the first place. That feels a little off.
And that's where the ethical questions arise.
Yeah.
Is this practice exploitative? Is it taking advantage of people in vulnerable situations? Or are there legitimate arguments to be made in its favor?
I mean, on one hand, I can see how it could be seen as a way to encourage more people to donate and keep the blood supply flowing.
Right.
But on the other hand, it definitely feels like it crosses a line. It's like you're being punished for needing blood, even though you may have donated yourself in the past.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the broader challenges of ensuring that blood donation remains a truly altruistic act, untainted by financial incentives or pressure tactics. So how do we as donors navigate this complicated landscape? How do we make sure our donations are being used ethically and responsibly?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll unpack the concept of transparency in the blood donation system, discuss how to spot potentially exploitative practices,
Oh, yeah.
and equip you with the knowledge to make informed decisions about where and how you donate.
Sounds good. So we've established that there's a lot more going on with blood donation than most people realize. But let's shift gears now and focus on how we as potential donors can navigate this system in a way that aligns with our values. Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the most important things you can do is prioritize transparency. Look for organizations that are upfront about their costs, their procedures, and how they utilize donated blood. Reputable organizations understand that trust is paramount, so they're open about their operations.
Okay, that makes sense. If an organization is being secretive or evasive about where the blood goes or how it's used, that's a pretty big red flag, right? Absolutely. Don't hesitate to ask direct questions. For example, inquire about where your blood will be used.
Okay.
Will it stay within your local community or will it be shipped elsewhere? What are the costs associated with processing and storing the blood? Any legitimate organization should be willing to provide clear and concise answers to these questions.
So it's like we need to become informed consumers,
Mm.
even when it comes to something as seemingly straightforward as blood donation.
That's a great analogy. Just as you would research a product or service before making a purchase, you should research the organization running the blood donation camp. Check if they're affiliated with a reputable hospital or medical group. Look into the credentials of the medical professionals involved. These are all simple steps you can take to ensure your donation is going to a trustworthy source.
So it's not just about showing up and rolling up our sleeves. We need to be proactive and do our due diligence to make sure our generosity is being directed appropriately.
Precisely. And remember, there are organizations out there doing incredible work. The Red Cross, for example, is known for its transparency and commitment to ethical practices. They're a great example of an organization that prioritizes both the donors and the recipients.
Okay, that's reassuring to know. So to sum it up, we need to be informed, ask the right questions, and do our research. But what about those replacement policies we talked about earlier? Are those practices ever justified, or are they always ethically problematic?
That's a tough one. Replacement policies definitely raise ethical concerns, especially when you consider the potential for coercion or pressure on family members in desperate situations. However, there are some who argue that in resource-constrained settings, these policies can actually help ensure a stable blood supply.
So it's a balancing act between maintaining a steady supply of blood and ensuring that donation remains a truly voluntary and altruistic act. Are there any other arguments in favor of replacement policies?
Yeah, some proponents argue that replacement policies foster a sense of community responsibility. By requiring family members to replace the blood their loved one receives, it reinforces the idea that we all have a role to play in supporting each other's health. It also potentially encourages those who might not otherwise donate to step forward.
I can see how that argument could be made, especially in communities where blood donation rates are low. But I still can't shake the feeling that it puts undue pressure on people, especially those who may not be in a position to donate for medical or personal reasons.
That's a valid concern, and it highlights the importance of having open and honest conversations about these practices. We need to ensure that people understand their options and are not feeling coerced or obligated to donate.
So even with practices like replacement donation, clear communication and informed consent are absolutely essential. But let's shift focus back to the individual donor. Aside from choosing reputable organizations, what else can we do to ensure our donations are making a positive impact?
One powerful way to advocate for a more ethical blood donation system is to support organizations that are actively working to improve transparency and accountability. There are groups dedicated to researching blood donation practices, advocating for better regulations, and educating the public about these issues.
So we can donate our money, our time, or our voices to support these efforts.
Exactly. And spreading awareness within your own social circles is also crucial. The more people who are informed about the potential pitfalls and complexities of the blood donation system, the more empowered we become to demand change.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Individual actions can create a wave of awareness and ultimately lead to systemic improvement.
Precisely. And remember, even if you choose not to donate blood yourself, you can still be an advocate for a more just and ethical system. We all have a role to play.
I think that's a really important point to emphasize. There are many ways to contribute even beyond the act of donation itself.
And ultimately, that's what Bloodlines challenges us to do, to think critically about the systems we participate in, even those with seemingly noble intentions, and to use our voices and actions to advocate for positive change.
You know, it's interesting how this deep dive started with such a simple question. Is our blood being sold for profit?
Hmm.
And we've uncovered so many layers of complexity. I feel like I have a much better understanding of the blood donation system, both the good and the bad.
It is a journey of discovery, isn't it? And it highlights how important it is to approach these seemingly straightforward acts with a critical eye. I mean, we often donate blood out of a sense of altruism, but understanding the systems at play really helps us ensure our good intentions are truly translating into positive outcomes.
Yeah, Bloodlines really left me with a lot to think about. They posed this question towards the end that stuck with me, and it was, you gave your blood to save lives, but when it's your turn to need it, will you be able to afford what you gave for free?
That's a powerful statement. And it really gets to the heart of the ethical dilemma we've been discussing. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that something as essential as blood can become commodified, and that access to healthcare, even something as basic as a blood transfusion, can be influenced by economic factors.
Yeah, it's almost like a paradox. We donate blood as a selfless act, but the system itself can sometimes feel at odds with that spirit of altruism.
Yeah, it's a tension that exists in many aspects of our healthcare systems. And it underscores the importance of ongoing dialogue, critical thinking, and advocacy for a more equitable and ethical approach to healthcare in general.
So where do we go from here? What can we do to ensure that blood donation remains the life-saving act it's intended to be?
Well, we've talked about being informed donors, asking the right questions, and supporting organizations committed to transparency. But it goes beyond that. We need to continue having these conversations, raising awareness, and advocating for policies that prioritize ethical practices and equitable access to healthcare.
So it's about individual action, but also about pushing for systemic change. It feels a bit daunting, to be honest.
It can feel that way. But remember, every voice matters. By educating ourselves and others, supporting ethical organizations, and advocating for change, we can collectively work towards a system that honors the altruistic spirit of blood donation while ensuring that this life-saving resource is available to everyone who needs it.
Well, this deep dive has definitely given me a new perspective. I'm going to be much more conscious about where I donate blood in the future, and I'm inspired to learn more about the organizations working to improve the system.
That's fantastic to hear. And for our listeners, if this deep dive has sparked your curiosity or raised concerns, we encourage you to do your own research and consider how you can contribute to a more ethical and equitable blood donation system.
It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking conversation. Thanks for guiding us through this complex topic.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, knowledge is power, and in this case, it has the potential to save lives.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and